Once upon a time, exactly 100 years ago, in the village of Ranchi in India, there lived a young Swami named Yogananda, who was a teacher. One day while meditating, he saw an ocean of faces in which he recognized many of them, and that they were from the United States of America. He knew he was to travel there. So he went to his guru, the noble Sri Yukteswar, in his ashram in Serampore. His guru said, "All ways are open to you." He traveled to his family home in Kolkata, where his father grudgingly but lovingly agreed to finance his trip. He left India on the steamer City of Sparta, the first steamer to travel worldwide after the First World War. And on September 19th, 1920, Swami Yogananda landed in the harbor of Boston, Massachusetts. He was to call the United States his home, and he was destined to become Paramahamsa Yogananda.
Who invited him to Boston?
Well, I go back to India. It all happened in India. And it was Annie Besant that made the arrangements for him to be at the Congress of Religious Liberals. Even though they were Unitarian, that wasn't the issue. The whole contact was theosophical.
On July 25th, 1920, around this date, Mahavatar Babaji appeared to Yoganandaji and told him to spread Kriya Yoga worldwide. The precise date is unknown, but conjecture led to this day being celebrated as Babaji Commemoration Day by the followers of Yoganandaji. On August 3rd, 1920, Sri Yoganandaji left India on the ship the City of Sparta, the first steamer to sail from India to America after World War I. On September 19th, 1920, Yogananda arrived in the United States on the ship the City of Sparta to attend the 7th Unitarian Congress of Religious Liberals in Boston, Massachusetts as the delegate from India. On January 12, 1929, Sri Yoganandaji addressed the Boston YMCA on My Mother India. This was also the first domicile when he first arrived. "24 Electric Avenue, Somerville, Mass. This was the home of Dr. and Mrs. Minot Lewis from 1919 to 1926. The Lewises occupied the second floor. Paramahamsaji stayed here frequently, and for some time had a room on the third floor at the back of the house. Dr. Lewis's wife, Mildred, met Paramahamsa Yogananda before Doctor did. After addressing the Congress, he accepted numerous invitations to speak before churches and philosophical groups. Mrs. Lewis attended one of the lectures and was invited to meet Swami Yogananda. She returned home to tell Dr. Lewis about the Swami from India. March 4th, 1921, Sri Yoganandaji resumed his lectures and classes at Jordan Hall in Boston, Massachusetts, with lectures each Sunday evening and each subject advertised in the local newspapers. On January 9th, 1929, Yogananda addressed the Boston Church of the Redemption on My Mother India. On January 5th, 1929, Yoganandaji presented a play with the Boston branch of the Yogoda Satsanga Society of America titled The Little Clay Cart at Jordan Hall in Boston.
This is a beautiful story about Paramahamsa Yoganandaji visiting the public library, Boston Public Library, when he received an anonymous letter from one of the persons claiming that Jesus was only a myth. Yoganandaji prayed to be led to the writer, and about a week later he visited the Boston Public Library. There, seeing a stranger seated on a bench under one of the windows, he went over and sat next to him. He asked him, "Why did you write me that letter?" he inquired. The man started in amazement. What do you mean? What letter? The one in which you claimed that Jesus was only a myth. But how on earth did you know I wrote that? I have always, the master replied, and I wanted you to know that the power by which I have found you enables me also to know for certain that Jesus Christ did live and that he was all the Bible claims. He was a true Christ.
On May 17th, 1922, Paramahamsa Yogananda spoke at the World Peace Meeting at Steinert Hall in Boston, Massachusetts. In May 7th, 1923, Sri Yoganandaji lectured at Steinert Hall on the subject of concentration. Steinert Hall overlooks the Boston Common, and our next stop will be walking through the Boston Common to get to the State House in Park Street Church. This is the Boston Common, where Paramahamsa Yoganandaji spent time walking through and around, and many people did.
Mrs. Lewis relates that sometimes when Swami Yogananda was walking around Boston Commons, the local boys would throw apples at his turban. So after about a year or two, Paramahamsa Yogananda stopped wearing his turban.
September 19th, 1928, Yoganandaji was received by the Massachusetts Governor Alvin T. Fuller at the State House in Boston.
On Monday, March 5th, 1923, Paramahamsaji addressed a regional conference on world peace at Park Street Church.
Paramahamsaji's ashram on Hardy's Pond was the first Yogoda ashram in America. The filing date for the proposed construction was June 13, 1922. The little cement block hermitage was built by an Irish bricklayer under Paramahamsaji's guidance. Here, for about 2 years, Paramahamsaji's Boston disciples spent many hours with him in meditation.
This is 70 Hiawatha, Paramahamsa Yoganandaji's first ashram from Yogoda Society in Waltham. This is the walkway that is now made to go out to Plum Island, South Jetty, where Paramahamsa Yoganandaji was with Mr. Lewis and family.
Dr. Lewis relates in the book Treasures Against Time that in July 1921, he and some family members were in Plymouth Bay and they got caught in a huge squall. And while they were panicking, the doctor remembered that Swami Yogananda had told him that when you're in the Om vibration, that nothing can harm you. So he concentrated and beheld a great light and was saved. And then later when he got back home, Yogananda approached him and said, "You nearly got wet, didn't you?" So I'm not entirely sure whether it was at Plum Island, but it was near there where late in the year, Dr. Lewis, his son Bradford, and Yogananda went down to the beach. And so Yogananda asked, "Shall we go for a swim, doctor?" And Dr. Lewis went, "I'd be mad to do so, because the water was really cold, like 40 degrees or something. So Yogananda then stripped on down to his swimming trunks and walked out into the ice cold water, and he remained there happily. So Bradford, Doctor's son, asked his father, how did he manage to do that? All I can say, Doctor replied, is that when he stepped into the water, I saw a great blue light suddenly surround him.
Somewhere around this area is where Paramahamsa Yoganandaji and Mr. Lewis sat for meditation for 5 hours. I got to the point where Dr. Lewis was focused and determined to stay still like Paramahamsa Yoganandaji. When the tide rose to such a point, Paramahamsaji came out of meditation, realized the danger they were within, and came running off of this jetty. At high tide and at an unruly tide, this jetty gets covered with waves. This is a shot at the end of the pier that we call Yoganandaji's Pier, where he would have arrived on the city of Sparta on September 19th, 1920.